Curran Bhatia talking to Shawn Porter. So, Shawn, obviously on September 28th, you are fighting the quote-unquote boogeyman, Errol Spence, pay-per-view, Fox, Staples Center. It's going to be huge. So I'm sure you get this question a lot, but they call him the boogeyman, right? No one wants to fight this guy. Everyone's been avoiding this guy, and you have no problem doing so. So why have you accepted this challenge, and why are you willing to take a risk that not a lot of other people in the division are?
Yeah, I think that it's just part of me, man. It's a part of who I am. I'm used to being counted out. I'm used to taking on the biggest challenges, man. Really quickly, when I was going for the Olympic Games, and trying to make the team, they take 8 guys to the trials. I fought in the 165-pound division, and out of those 8 guys that were there at the trials, about 6 of us easily could have been the representative for that weight class. I mean, each and every guy in that weight class was tough, was hard to fight, great style, great boxers. I've been up against stuff like that my entire life, you know. So to go up against a guy who's regarded as quote unquote the boogeyman, or looked at as a guy who's feared and no one wants to fight him. So a lot of reasons why guys didn't want to fight Errol Spence. To start, he was a young up-and-coming guy, and nobody wanted to take the risk of losing to a young up-and-coming guy or being exposed by a young up-and-coming guy, you know? So everybody's like, yo, you got to wait your turn. I was the one that said, hey, you get a belt, and I'll see you soon. And once he got that belt, it was just a matter of time, you know? So I'm in a position right now where, this is what I do, this is who I've been my entire life. So I'm the one who's always taken on big challenges throughout my life, boxing and every other sport, and even academically, everything that I've done has always been a big challenge for me, so this is familiar territory for me.
So we know that you'll take on anyone in the division. You've never shied away from that, and you get credit for that. We've seen you with a couple different styles. A lot of times it's Shawn Porter, the bulldog, right, who's going to get right in your face and not let you move and just apply that relentless pressure. I've heard announcers say it's like being in the middle of a hurricane, right? There's nowhere to go. Now, we've also seen you kind of box from the outside a little bit in your last fight against Ugas. Tried to box a little bit more. Obviously, you don't want to give your game plan away, but can you give us a little bit of a preview? I mean, I'm sure you've studied a lot of tape on Spence. What style do you think we'll expect on September 28th from Shawn Porter?
You know what? I think with Errol Spence, everything is required. I think there are going to be times where you're going to see me box and use my feet. There are going to be times where you see me get into his chest and dig his body and, hit him and pressure him and test him really the way you've never seen him be tested. Or never see anyone go at him, I did 13 rounds yesterday of sparring yesterday. Yesterday was my last and hardest sparring session of camp. And throughout those 13 rounds, we mixed it up a lot. We did a lot of different things, So in this fight, I think it's really going to depend on what we feel is going to be the best way to beat him, whether it's in a moment or in a certain round.
And do you look at, I produced a show, PBC Countdown. There's also PBC Fight Camp, which is you looking at training camp. Are you looking at what he's doing? Because you just told me a little bit about how much you're sparring. He's known for doing 15 rounds of sparring in an 105-degree gym. Are you looking at a little bit of what he's doing in training as well?
I have not. The funny thing is I stay away from the countdown and face-to-face and all this stuff. I hate seeing myself on TV. I'm my own worst critic, and I just, I really get uncomfortable watching myself on TV. So I really have stayed away from it. I do have it all recorded, just so that we can, so that I can take a look at some things. So I'm sure at some point I will take a look at how his training has gone, what his mentality looks like through his training, what his camp and their mentality looks like through training. I think that what you're doing, not only from a physical standpoint of training, but also from a psychological standpoint of training, it all becomes what we call muscle memory. So your brain is a muscle, and whatever they're saying and doing in camp whatever I see on the TV, on the clips, on social media, things like that. It's pretty safe to say that that's what they're going to expect to do in the ring, you know. So I think I will be able to get a good glimpse of what to expect in the ring next week, man. It's coming up quick.
It's coming up quick, September 28th, like we said. That's coming up in a week. So you and Errol, just personally, you guys were always friends. You know, he came into the ring and he said, "I love your daddy. Let's get it on." So obviously you were close. But in recent times, he said that he called you a dirty fighter. I'm sure you didn't like that. So has your relationship changed at all now that you guys are preparing for this fight?
You know what? For Errol and I, as we get closer, I think it's the competitive spirit for both of us is like probably at an all-time high. The first guy that I got in the ring with as a professional that I was really familiar with was Keith Thurman. Keith and I had gone back in the amateur program, had never fought against each other, but you know we just were very familiar with one another. So for us to get in the ring, it was just. We were friends and we were going to fight. And then after that, we were going to be friends again. With Errol Spence, I really don't know. It was like, you know, we were cordial. This fight is happening. And I think him and I both know that it's, you know, I feel like, you know, my back is against the wall. I think he feels the same way. I really don't know what's going to happen after this fight, you know. This kid's going to take his first loss. I know what that feels like. It's a lot weighing on him. You know, he's got, you know, he's the favorite. And, you know, nobody's expecting him to lose. He's not expecting himself to lose. So I know after he takes his loss, there's going to be a lot coming at him all at once. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he you know, maybe our friendship will still be there.
And I could hear the confidence in your voice already, you know, preparing for Errol Spence's loss and getting, you know, preparing that way. That's great. When he called you a dirty fighter, I mean, what did you think about that? You couldn't have been happy about that.
Yeah, you know, I really didn't care. You know, for me, it's like, you know, if you are concerned about quote unquote dirty tactics that Shawn Porter is going to do in the ring, then you're going to miss some other things that Shawn Porter does very, very well outside of quote unquote being dirty, you know. So I think that, you know, his mind, even at that, you know, you read into that, you say maybe your mind is focused on other things that aren't as important as just me being a pure boxer and a pure competitor in this sport that's going to really, you know, test you and give you all you can handle.
And your preparation for this fight, I know you have 3 different coaches. You're doing interesting sparring. You sparred with David Benavidez. I think you were thinking about sparring with Demetrius Andrade. I'm not sure if that ended up happening. What have you learned from those sparring sessions?
When we sparred with David Benavidez, we wanted to go out to Cali just before we left for DC. We wanted to get in the ring with another world champion and really see where I was at that point in camp. I think at that point we were about four weeks away from the fight, and we knew at that point we proved to ourselves at that point that everything was what we expected. The conditioning was there. The even from the psychological standpoint of being able to think in the ring, make adjustments in the ring, listen to the corner, all the things that need to happen in the fight. My dad likes to put me into a fight atmosphere so that we know that we're ready for that big moment, you know. So with Boo Boo, we weren't able to get Boo Boo in. He's got a lot of personal things going on back home, and I just wished him well. His mom is going through some things. I just wished him well, and then of course without me asking, he shot right back at me a whole bunch of notes for me to look over. And, you know, he's in my corner, and I love him to death and back. Just coming back to Vegas, our last hard sparring session, 13 rounds yesterday with the guy about 5'10" and about 185 pounds. So that was then there's the mama's boy, Douglin. And he's been in a lot of big fights as a professional as well. So we've done it all, man, up to this point, man. At this point, we're in cruise control. I'm about to hit yoga, feel good, feel great, and make our way to LA and get ready for this big one.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, only a couple more questions because I know you have to get to yoga. So, you just talked about what you do in training camp, the hard sparring. We have the multiple coaches all doing different things. You're doing swimming, you're doing strength work, you're doing track work, you're doing a bunch of things. So, last fight when you fought against Ugas, I know you put in a really long camp, and you had a game plan, and then on the way to the ring, and you talked about this on the countdown show, is that your dad whispered in your ear and he said, tonight we're not going to get in this guy's face, we're going to box. So what happened there? Like, you have a game plan for 8+ weeks and then you kind of change it on the way to the ring. So why did your dad make that decision on the way to the ring there?
He told me that he went to lay down to get some rest before we left for the fight. He said as he started to fall asleep, he felt something. He said he heard God tell him that, verbatim, he said, God told me to tell you that he can't keep up with you. And, Team Porter knows what that means. That means I'm too fast. I'm too quick. And he said, tonight we're just going to use our feet. We're going to use our hands. We're going to make this a clean fight. And that's what I went out there and did. Somebody else asked me, if that happens again with this fight, will you follow that, or will you follow through with the game plan? I really don't anticipate that happening in this fight. I think that everything that we've gotten from this standpoint in terms of wisdom, knowledge, preparation, all of that, we've gotten from God already. And I think that we're locked and loaded and ready to do what we've planned and designed to do from the start. So I don't expect anything like that to happen. If it does, we will definitely go with our hearts and do what we got to do.
And even with changing the game plan, it was a close fight in that one of the scorecards went to Ugas, but at the end of the day, you did what you had to do, and then you got through that tough opponent and set yourself up for now. When you look back at your career, only 2 losses to Kell Brook and Keith Thurman. Of those losses, I'm sure you learned a lot. Which one of those was harder for you to go through, and which one did you learn more from?
Both. Kell Brook. Kell Brook was the harder fight to go through after the result, and it was also the fight that I learned the most from. I did learn a lot in my fight with Keith Thurman as well, and even now, you say what would you have done differently, and I said there's just really small things I would have done differently, but for the most part, we did exactly what we wanted to do going into the ring against Keith Thurman. With Kell Brook, there were no adjustments. That I was locked and loaded on one mind. I didn't listen to my corner. I went at him one way for the entire fight. I mean, the list goes on, and I learned a lot about myself in and out of the ring with the fight with Kell Brook. So that's the one that that I let the belt get away from me, and I told myself, once I was able to recognize, after going through the emotional upset, and just being mad and upset at myself and things like that, and once I started to reflect and learn from the fight, I told myself, I would never go through that again. And to this point, I have not. I don't expect to.
And you have you went through those fights. You got past that adversity, and now it's all systems go here for September 28th with Kell Brook. Do you look at what Errol Spence did against Kell Brook? Does that matter at all? Obviously styles make fights, so it's a completely different thing. But do you look at his matchup and say, wow, okay, well, this is a little bit concerning because he was able to kind of stop this guy? Obviously the eye situation for Kell, but was that concerning at all? Seeing what Errol Spence did?
Listen, for me, when I look at that fight, it's not about me learning things to do against Errol Spence. Honestly, when I watch that fight, I put into my mind, this kid is dominant. If you allow him to get his way, he will be dominant. This is who he is as a fighter and as a person. And for me, watching the fight with him and Kell Brook is more of a psychological lesson for me than it is physical or anything like that. So I just have in my mind, this is going to be 12 hard rounds. This kid's not going to stop. He's going to want to get his way. He's a lot like me. When he doesn't, he's going to want to impose his will and do whatever he feels he needs to do in order to get his way. So that's what I take away from that fight. There are other fights that I've learned some things from, but collectively, I think with that fight specifically, it's not a style or certain punch or anything like that I take away from. It's who he is as a fighter. That's what I take away from that fight.
And just to close it out, so this question is from Parth Moki. He was actually the PA on your show with Fight Camp, so he got to watch you in all your different training. So he wanted me to ask you, what is the Porter way? Tell us about what does that mean to you, the Porter way?
Listen, and I'm going to get closer. Listen,
Yeah.
This is the Porter way. The Porter way, we don't stop. We don't accept no for an answer. We do whatever it takes when we have to do that. We love. We love on one another. We try to extend our love to everyone around us. We try to be inspiring. We try to be motivating. We try to be everything positive, nothing negative. When it comes to this fight, we haven't listened to anything negative about this fight. We don't entertain it. We understand that we always have to prove ourselves. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm from Northeast Ohio. In Northeast Ohio, nothing is given. Everything is earned. That's a quote by LeBron James, and that's absolutely true. I'm from a blue-collar city. We work hard, and then we enjoy ourselves on the weekend, and then we get right back to work. With this fight, I'm right back to work. I'm going to work all night. I'm going to do whatever it takes to leave the ring with 2 belts.
Hey, I'm certainly motivated and pumped, and I can't wait for the fight. So last question. I know as a prediction, you're obviously picking yourself to win, but are we going to expect a kind of a 12-round fight where you're in his face all night? Are we going to see a knockout? What is your official prediction of how it's going to go down?
Honestly, this is boxing. You never really know what's going to happen. I'm sure and me winning this fight alone is going to shake up the world. I think the way that I win this fight is really going to shake up the world. I catch him with a right hand, a good body shot, anything like that. I'm able to jump on him and get him out of there. That's exactly what I expect to do, and that's what I want to do. And I know that he's coming to the ring with the exact same mindset. So it's my will against his will. It's my heart against his heart. It's my skills against his speed. Same. The list goes on. This fight, I really can't make a prediction of how I win this fight. But a lot like when I fought Danny Garcia, I refused to leave the ring to leave the city of New York without that green belt. I refuse to leave LA without being a unified champion, and I'm looking forward to it.
I can't wait to see it. Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence, Saturday, September 28th. It's on Fox pay-per-view. It's at the Staples Center in LA. Shawn Porter, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck with this challenge with Errol Spence, and hopefully we can talk to you after the fight.
It's showtime. Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.